Russia warns Ukraine to defend Crimea with US and UK missiles. Russia warned Ukraine against plans to attack Crimea with long-range missiles made by the United States and Britain, and said Moscow would retaliate if this happened. Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu said in a meeting with military officials on Tuesday that Moscow had received intelligence that Ukraine was planning to attack Crimea with British-supplied HIMARS long-range missiles and Storm cruise missiles. The use of these missiles outside of our exclusive military zone means that the US and UK will be drawn into a conflict and lead to a sudden attack on Ukraine's decision-making centers, Shoigu said. Russia annexed Ukraine's Crimean Peninsula in 2014 and found it outside the scope of its special military operations in eastern and southern Ukraine, which it was fighting to retake. Kyiv says it is fighting for survival and that Russia wants to give up all of its territory, including the Black Sea naval base in Crimea. Shoigu said that the Ukrainian army has carried out 263 attacks on Russian positions since June 4, which Moscow saw as the beginning of the Ukrainian offensive. Shoigu said, "Thanks to our clever and devoted soldiers, all attack was repelled. The enemy failed to achieve its goal." Ukraine claimed to have recaptured 8 villages in the early stages of its offensive, and defense officials promised that the biggest of Kyiv was yet to come, despite heavy weight from the Russian army. At the moment, our troops in the south and east are actively destroying the enemy, clearing the body of Ukraine, President Vladimir Zelensky said in a video message during the night. Meanwhile, Ukrainian police announced that Russia had hit military and infrastructure targets in other parts of the country, including Kyiv, the capital of Ukraine, and in the west, far from the front line, on Tuesday. President Volodymyr Zelensky said that Ukrainian air defense shot down more than 30 Russian drones, while ground forces destroyed Russian forces in 2 key conflict areas in the east and south. In the statement made by the Russian Ministry of Defense, it was stated that the Russian army destroyed 8 ammunition depots across Ukraine in the last 24 hours and repelled the Ukrainian resistance in our region. The agency added that Ukrainian forces tried to attack the Russian-controlled city of Donetsk and the southern Zaporozhye region, but were repulsed. Zelensky's office said that the drones hit the Kyiv region in several waves over the course of 4 hours. Separately, regional officials in Russia said the Ukrainian military used drones over the Russian-controlled town of Novokakhovka in southern Kherson on Tuesday, killing a woman and injuring 4 others. Since the war in Ukraine, European countries have focused on financial and military aid to Kyiv. Russian President Vladimir Putin warned that by criticizing the policies of Western countries, they increase the risk of international conflict. Putin also accused the West of exploiting Ukraine and using the Ukrainian people as bait for Russia. Moscow has repeatedly denounced Western military support for Ukraine since the war began. The Kremlin added that they did not seek a solution to end the conflict, claiming that the West was only fueling the flames. The Kremlin has warned the US and UK that if the Storm Shadow and HIMARS missiles are used against targets in Russia or Russia's Crimea, they will be considered agents participating in the war in Ukraine. Vladimir Putin's defense attorney, Sergei Shoigu, has warned that Putin will target Ukraine's decision centers, saying he plans to order his army to target Volodymyr Zelensky and the government leader in Kyiv. Shoigu, as far as we know, the leadership of the armed forces of Ukraine plans to use HIMARS and Storm missiles to attack the territory of the Russian Federation, including Crimea. Use them outside of special military operations. It means the full involvement of the USA and the UK in the conflict and is subject to jurisdiction. Results in an instant attack, Ukrainian pressure. He claimed that Crimea was part of Russia, a part of which the West and international law objected, which decided to hand over Crimea to Ukraine. Putin had to annex the Black Sea Peninsula in 2014. So far, Ukraine has used UK-provided long-range Storm Shadow and US-supplied HIMARS to attack targets in Russia's mainland Ukraine, excluding Crimea. Shoigu's threat came as Russia confirmed that it had lost another officer in the Shadow before the storm today at Arabat Spit, near Crimea. Colonel Sergei Postovolov, 53, was fatally wounded in the June 10 attack on a Russian command post near Henichesk, minutes after Putin's deputy prime minister, Denis Manchurov, visited. Putin reportedly visited the site in April. Postovolov is a soldier in the army of the Ministry of Internal Affairs of Russia. Russian Army Major General Sergei Goryachev, 52, died earlier this month in an attack on Zaporizhia region. Ukrainian troops also seen as unleashed Storm Shadow. Shoigu was seen to be affected by the power of Storm Shadow with a range of 155 miles, launched by Ukrainian Su-24 warplanes. Shoigu told the Russian Ministry of Defense the Kyiv government used a large number of Western weapons and elite designs, and its personnel were trained by NATO experts. Last week, Moscow's head Yevgeny Balitsky, who took over the Zaporizhzhia region, admitted that the weapon is more of a problem for Kremlin forces than the United States, as the HIMARS system is even heavier. Words confirmed the view that the shadow of a long-standing storm had changed for Ukrainians when they launched the attack on Kyiv. Their rockets will cause us problems, I must say, especially the storm, Balitsky said. How we learn to fight with US-supplied HIMARS. But the shadow, provided by the UK, is more difficult. They came and had a larger radius. So this is the problem for us. Actually, our air defense has a Storm Shadow problem. He hit them, but the missiles only had a 50% chance of being hit. He continued, this month has just arrived for us. Sometimes two people succeed. Missiles are modern, not accurate, but fast enough to fly well. In other words, it is not easy to shoot at different speeds, at different heights, with varying patterns. Britain announced the Anglo-French-made Storm Shadow to Ukraine on May 11th, in response to Kyiv's long-standing demand for long-range missiles to help defend its territory from interference by Putin's forces. It was reported that the shadow of the storm also hit the port cities of Berdyansk and Mariupol on the Sea of Azov. Missiles worth £2.2 million per unit were used to target Lugansk in occupied Donbass. The GPS-guided surface-to-ground missile with a 450 kilograms warhead, has a range of 155 miles. The missiles allow Ukrainian forces to strike Russian-controlled areas more deeply than before. The Storm Shadow is a low-sight, long-range, air-launched cruise missile developed by Matra and British Aerospace since 1994 and now by MBDA. Defense Minister Ben Wallace previously confirmed that Ukraine used the missile on May 18, but declined to give further details. He said the missiles gave the Ukrainians the ability to hit Russian command and control centers, thereby enabling them to drop many of the rocket artillery systems transported to the front line to Kyiv on the side of the sunset. Ukraine is the only country to launch these missiles from the UK.